spending on our defense. President Trump is working as fast as he can, urging his military to build up our defenses, to rejuvenate our weapons. We're still making weapons like the 90s. China and Russia are not. They're developing very quickly and cheaply very capable weapons.
Okay, Carla Sands, thank you very much indeed.
What happens when a political argument runs into a question that it simply cannot answer? Well, that is exactly what we are about to see in this exchange involving Piers Morgan and former Trump administration official Carla Sands. In this discussion, the conversation turns toward one of the most controversial foreign policy issues surrounding Donald Trump's administration, the future of Greenland and the arguments being made around national security. But as the debate unfolds, one moment stands out. A question that puts Sands in an extremely difficult position and forces her to confront what appears to be a major contradiction. Instead of directly addressing the comparison being raised, we see a familiar political strategy, shifting the conversation away from the uncomfortable point and moving toward a different argument. And that moment raises bigger questions about consistency, principles, and whether the same standards are being applied across different situations. Because in politics, the hardest questions are often not the ones you disagree with. They are the ones that expose potential contradictions within your own position. So, in this clip, we're going to break down the exchange between Piers Morgan and Carla Sands, examine the question she struggled to answer, and look at why this moment has sparked such a heated debate about Donald Trump's foreign policy approach and the arguments used to defend it. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let's watch the clip and then I'll give you my thoughts on what really happened.
I want to change topic just to Greenland. We're going to be joined by a guest briefly, and I'll come to the panel for their reaction to this. Carla Sands was the US ambassador to Denmark during the first Trump administration and joins me now. Welcome to you. Many people are looking on slightly aghast at Donald Trump's rhetoric. He said yesterday, the United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Green Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will. That's not going to happen. Militarily, without the vast power of the United States, much of which I built during my first term, and I'm now bringing to a new and even higher level, NATO wouldn't be an effective force or deterrent, not even close. They know, and I do, that NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's making it pretty clear he wants to take Greenland. Do you support this?
Well, Piers, I support the security and safety of the American people, and that is President Trump's main goal. He is working to make sure that you and I, if we're in the U.S., that we're safe, but also that our allies are safe and the world. Greenland is key because of many reasons. First of all, Greenland's going independent. They've said so, and they will go independent in the 21st century. I think Denmark has gaslighted them enough that they've slowed it down a little bit because they've got the Greenlanders terrified by doing a psyop on the Greenlanders, sadly. But President Trump understands he's going to install the Golden Dome. It's kind of like Israel's Iron Dome, but it involves Greenland and Alaska. They are the two pieces that are needed. Now, Greenland is going independent. President Trump will not let it fall into the hands of Russia or China. And in 2019, President Trump said to the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, who is the current Prime Minister of Denmark, and she's really good for the Danish people, not so good for the Greenlanders. President Trump said, look, I'm worried about Greenland. You haven't secured it. You have to. She goes, okay, I'm committing $200 million. We're going to invest in security for Greenland. Flash forward, she invested 1% and it wasn't for security, $2 million. The rest, she did not invest in any security for Greenland because they just don't care. They want their money to go to social welfare programs in Denmark. That is what the government takes care of because that's what the people want. She's actually a decent prime minister, absolutely. But President Trump understands the urgency of making sure Greenland doesn't fall into the hands of Russia or China. The Greenlandic politicians have said, we want to have a closer relationship with China. And they've said to me personally, if the US doesn't invest in our mining and our, infrastructure, we're going to get China to do it. So they don't understand the international ramifications. President Trump does. And when they go independent, he is not going to let them be in the hands of an adversary.
And if Donald Trump just decides to take Greenland, as he's intimating, he may be compelled to do in his eyes, where does that leave us with China just taking Taiwan? What would be the moral distinction between the two things? Why shouldn't China just help themselves to Taiwan? Why shouldn't Vladimir Putin say, well, this is exactly what I'm doing with Ukraine? How dare you guys in the West take the high moral ground, given the United States has just helped itself to Greenland?
Well, because the despots of the world, these authoritarian figures, they see what President Trump does and they actually behave better. A strong America and a strong US president gets the world order in a better place. We had terrible leadership over the past 4 years.
Vladimir Putin hasn't, with all due respect, Vladimir Putin, well, hang on.
Putin never invaded another country.
But Putin hasn't stopped bombing Ukraine from the moment Donald Trump came to power. In fact,
and that's a European issue. Yeah, that's a European issue. So NATO is strong because of the US. And President Trump has been asking our European allies, please increase your ability to defend your own territory. Let's not forget that Denmark is in violation of the NATO Charter. Article 3 says that every NATO ally has the ability to defend their own territory. And then Article 5 come to the defense of their allies. Denmark has not a prayer to defend Greenland. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the money. It's a small economy about the size of the state of Colorado. Greenland is unsecure because Denmark doesn't have the ability. They're also out of line with NATO because they cannot and will never be able to defend their own territory, even if they get.
But would it be wrong legally and morally for China to then take Taiwan?
I do not believe that China will take Taiwan while President Trump is in office.
Right, but that wasn't my question. My question was, would it be legally and morally wrong of them to do it?
Well, Taiwan is another subject. I don't want to conflate the two. I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to talk about Greenland and the fact that the people intend to go independent. They ultimately don't want to be part of Denmark. Denmark oppressed the people. They sterilized women. They kidnapped children and took them away from the families. They've done a lot of things and kept them living very primitively until the U.S. military, we occupied Greenland in the World War II time, and we actually stayed until the 90s when the Berlin Wall fell. Then all of us, our allies, which we need our allies, we love our allies, but we all took that peace dividend and stopped spending on our defense. President Trump is working as fast as he can, urging his military to build up our defenses, to rejuvenate our weapons.
Okay.
We're still making weapons like the 90s. China and Russia are not. They're developing very quickly and cheaply very capable weapons.
Okay. Carla Sands, thank you very much indeed.
And this is where the biggest issue with this exchange comes in. Carla Sands was presented with a very simple challenge. If one country cannot justify taking control of another territory, then why should that same principle suddenly change when it comes to Greenland? But instead of directly engaging with that comparison, she moved away from the question. And that is exactly why this moment stood out. Because when a political argument is built around defending certain principles, those principles have to apply consistently, not only when they are convenient. The reason this response has attracted so much attention is because critics argue that avoiding the Taiwan comparison creates the appearance of a double standard. If territorial sovereignty matters in one situation, then people naturally want to know why that same standard should not apply everywhere else. However, Piers Morgan also deserves criticism here. While he raised the question, he could have pushed harder. He had the opportunity to keep pressing and force a clearer answer instead of allowing the conversation to move away from the central point. And that is something we have seen repeatedly in political interviews. The strongest moments often come when the interviewer refuses to let a guest escape a difficult question. Because at the end of the day, political debates are not just about defending your side. They are about being able to explain your position when the same logic is applied back to you. So, what do you think about this exchange? Did Carla Sands successfully answer the question, or did she avoid a comparison that exposed a contradiction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.